Devoted his last months to Petey and Calvin. It pained them to watch such a large, commanding figure and faithful friend deteriorate until nurses half his size were summoned to lift his patients. His leaving became inevitable, aided by his stubborn will to depart while he could still walk, his head held high. In late spring, Joe worked his final shift on the ward. He said goodbye to Petey and Calvin with a simple pat on the shoulder and a loving tweak on the chin. "Take good care of yourselves," were his last words. Then he was gone. Joe's departure devastated Petey and Calvin. No amount of tears could bring him back. Several letters from hospitals in Portland and Seattle arrived for the boys. A nurse read the letters to each of them. In each letter, Joe talked about oceans and ships and big cities, but never about his ailment. When 6 months passed without a letter, each boy quietly accepted the implication. Without Joe, seasons cycled without remorse. After each bleak winter, springtime winds tumbled in over the Rockies, warming the harsh landscape and melting snow cover. Just as the cold had pried past the large single-pane windows each winter, so did spring warmth crept gently into the ward. Days grew longer, but daybreak and sunset still traded light with their passionless rhythm. Time plodded forward. Petey endured time, gazing half-heartedly out through dirty windows. Shafts of light poked into the room, falling onto a worn and discolored floor. The the yellow varnish had chips and scrapes, which over the years had allowed the wood to absorb anything it touched. Now the floor doled out these odors of urine, spilled food, lye, sweat, and vomit. The smell left many newcomers queasy, but the patients hardly noticed. They had long ago become a part of the waste. The passing of time also tormented Petey's body, continuing the cruel havoc that nature had introduced at birth. Petey's small legs grew, tugging in tighter against his chest. His right leg slowly crossed the left, leaving both knees angled upwards. Petey's head pitched sideways, and his arms and wrists drew in like chicken wings. When he grew excited, his shriveled limbs thrashed about like big featherless bird trying to take flight. Calvin became a daily fixture at the far corner of the day room, his head cradled in his arms, face down. After Joe had left 2 years earlier, Calvin withdrew into a troubled world of silence. His weight ballooned until he resembled a Buddhist statue with the distorted legs facing inward. His silver pistol, handle worn smooth from use, gathered dust on his green metal nightstand. Occasionally a reluctant game of cowboy brought half smiles, but it also triggered memories of Joe leaving. The memories plunged Calvin deeper in his self-imposed exile. Other changes followed Joe's leaving. Now Petey found himself cared for by women. Because of the war against the Germans and Japanese, most able-bodied male attendants had left, replaced by older men, women, or nursing students taking psychiatric training at Warm Springs. One of the women who worked on Ward 18, Cassie Graber, was an attractive 24-year-old nurse. Her husband, drafted after the attack on Pearl Harbor, left for Europe, not knowing she was pregnant with her first child. Life for Cassie was a tedium of long shifts, caring for her little girl Lisa and writing letters to her husband Alex. Her only respite from the monotony was the unbelievable, deformed, but delightful 22-year-old patient named Petey Corbin. Officially, he was diagnosed an idiot. Unofficially, she discovered him to be a wonderful human being. They quickly became close friends. One day, as Petey stared silently out the window, Cassie walked up behind him quietly and laid her hand softly on his shoulder. "A penny for your thoughts." Petey jerked at the surprise touch, flailing his arms. The restraint that usually stopped such a reflex in most people was missing from Petey's development. His surprise gave way to a huge smile of recognition. "Ooh," he encountered, grinning up at the blonde nurse. "You look kind of bird." Ooh, actually he was bored numb, but one touch from Cassie made Petey anything but bored. "Who you, Faithy?" he asked. "My baby?" Lisa's doing just fine, Petey. Maybe tomorrow I'll bring her in again and show you she's grown." Prefer goo. Petey motioned with concerned eyes to where Calvin sat despondently. After Joe left, Petey's emptiness had been filled by Cassie. She came to the worm like a breath of sunshine, fussing over him and joking to cheer him up. For Calvin, the emptiness remained. "You worried about Calvin?" Cassie asked. So am I, Petey. I'm not sure what to do for him. It seems that after people lose friends, they often lose their reason to exist. What Calvin has to learn is that there's always tomorrow and new friends. You understand that? I know you do, Petey. Well, I gotta get busy. I'll try to bring Lisa in tomorrow. It's my day off." Issa. That's right, Petey. Lisa. As she turned to leave, she ruffled Petey's hair. See ya, buddy. Goodbye. Petey strained to watch her leave. She walked like a big, beautiful cat, her gently curved body firm and captivating. Strange and exciting feelings stole Petey's breath away as Cassie smiled or patted his forehead. Often he dreamed of walking down the long path from Infant's Ward holding hands with Cassie. Whenever he reached Men's Ward, he always woke up to his crippled body in a wheelchair beside the bed. Some night, maybe his dream would take him off that path. He'd walk with Cassie out into the open field behind the ward and never returned. The rest of the morning, Petey stared into space, engrossed in thought. Occasionally, his uncontrolled jerks helped chase away flies that crawled into his ears or nose. Shortly after lunch, he needed changing. Accustomed to sitting in this condition for hours, he tried not to think about it. Finally, late in the afternoon, Cassie bustled over. She wore a starched blouse tucked into a long white skirt. Petey, I've been so busy. Do you need changing? Reluctantly, Petey nodded. As Cassie wheeled him to his bed, Petey looked up at the gentle face above him. Several loose strands of Cassie's long hair dangled over her shoulders. Sometimes when she bent over, the hair drifted across Petey's face. His body shivered as if touched by wind. He never grew tired of admiring Cassie. The bump of his chair against the bed woke him rudely from his state of adoration. Aided by another nurse, Cassie swung Petey onto the bed for changing. Petey had never felt so embarrassed lying helpless, exposed, and in need of cleaning, not until Cassie came along. All of a sudden, he was filled with a shame he could not explain or escape from. Again and again, he told himself that the hands that cleaned him were not Cassie's touch. They were from the persons whose job it was to take care of him. Cassie's touch was on the hand of his cheek, the warm smile that shortened his breath as he stroked her forehead. But try as he might, the thought haunted Petey. What did Cassie think of him as he cleaned his deformed, helpless body? He feared the answer. Wearing only a shirt and socks, Petey was lifted awkwardly back into the chair. Quickly, Cassie pulled the white sheet up over his bent legs and tucked in the ends. When Cassie was there, the sheet could never be pulled up fast enough or tucked in far enough. Safely covered, Petey looked up shyly. Thou. Oh, you're welcome, Cassie smiled as if meeting a handsome prince. Hey, Petey, tomorrow when I bring Lisa over, would you like to go outside? Petey stared in disbelief. Outside, was she teasing him? Why? Well, tomorrow the Montana State College Band is coming to perform. They're playing out by the pond. Because it's my day, I'll have the time to help bring you down. Would you like that? Aye, Petey gasped. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. As she turned to leave, Petey looked over to where Calvin sat despondently beside the table. Woo. Cassie turned back. What did you say? Whoa? Petey nodded, smiling, then glanced towards Calvin. You want to know if Calvin can go along, don't you? Aye. Cassie eyed Petey with admiration, then reached and squeezed his shoulder. You're always thinking of others. Of course Calvin can go. It will be good for him. Aye. As Cassie left towards the ward, Petey watched her every move and followed her until the last switch of her white dress disappeared at the door. The rest of that day and late into the night, Petey dreamed of two things, of Cassie and going outside. He had not been outside since coming from Infant's Ward, many long years before. The very thought left him dizzy with excitement.